What if I told you that God is about to humiliate you in front of everyone who counted you out? What if the very people who whispered they'll never make it are about to witness your supernatural comeback? What if your greatest embarrassment is actually your setup for the most shocking vindication of your life? Stop everything, right now, because what I'm about to tell you will either offend your mind or ignite your spirit. There's no middle ground here. God is preparing to embarrass you, not with shame, with glory so thunderous, so undeniable, so absolutely overwhelming that your haters will have to applaud, your critics will have to confess, your enemies will have to bow. You've been living in the shadows for so long, you forgot you were made for the spotlight. You've been whispering your prayers because you thought your breakthrough had to be quiet. But chosen one, God doesn't do quiet victories. He does loud resurrections. Think about Joseph. One day he's rotting in a dungeon, forgotten, forsaken, written off as a dreamer who lost his mind. 24 hours later, he's wearing Pharaoh's ring, commanding nations, and his brothers are bowing at his feet. The same God who embarrassed Joseph's enemies with overnight promotion is about to do it again. For you, what if the very place they mocked you becomes the platform where God magnifies you? What if your lowest point was actually your launching pad? What if every tear you cried in secret was a seed God planted for public harvest? If this is hitting your spirit right now, if something in your soul just jumped, type, "That's me" in the comments. Like this message, if you've ever walked through a silent storm that nobody saw, where you had to smile on the outside while your world crumbled on the inside. And listen, thank you to every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're helping spread light to others who feel forgotten in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message is resonating with your soul, go ahead and let that support flow as the Spirit leads you. Because, chosen one, your season of silent suffering is over. Your time of hidden faithfulness is done. God is about to embarrass you with blessings so massive, so public, so absolutely overwhelming that you won't be able to explain it away. Are you ready to be God's billboard of impossible favor? Then buckle up, because what happens next will shock your enemies and blow your mind. How many nights did you lie awake wondering if God had forgotten your address? How many times did you watch others get promoted, blessed, celebrated, while you sat in the shadows questioning if your prayers were even making it past the ceiling? How long have you been the faithful one that nobody talks about, the consistent one that nobody celebrates, the praying one that nobody sees? Dear chosen one, I need you to understand something that's going to cut deep before it heals. Those weren't wasted years. Those weren't forgotten seasons. Those weren't God ignoring you while He blessed everyone else around you. Those were your foundational years. You see, while they were laughing at your dedication, God was building your character. While they were mocking your consistency, heaven was taking inventory of your faithfulness. While they dismissed your quiet strength, the Almighty was documenting every single moment of your unwavering devotion. You cried behind closed doors. Nobody saw those tears except the one who bottles every drop. You worshipped in whispers when your voice was too broken to sing out loud. You stayed faithful while feeling completely forgotten by the very God you served with everything you had. But here's what they didn't see. Here's what you couldn't see. Here's what the enemy tried desperately to hide from you. You were seed planted, not buried. Every rejection was fertilizer. Every delay was divine timing. Every disappointment was preparation for a promotion so massive it would leave your critics speechless and your enemies bowing in recognition of God's hand on your life. Think about Hannah. For years, she endured the taunts of Peninnah. Year after year, she went to the temple empty-handed while other women carried their children with pride. She was mocked for her barrenness, ridiculed for her persistence, dismissed as the woman who couldn't even do what women were supposed to do naturally. But God was taking notes in silence. And when Hannah's season shifted, she didn't just get pregnant. She gave birth to Samuel, the prophet who would anoint kings and change nations. Her private pain became public purpose. Her silent suffering became supernatural significance. That's your story too, chosen one. You remember the family gatherings where everyone else's successes were celebrated while your struggles were barely acknowledged. You remember the workplace where others got the recognition while your hard work went unnoticed. You remember the church meetings where everyone else seemed to have a testimony while you sat there wondering when your breakthrough would come. If you ever had to act okay while your world was falling apart, say amen in the chat. Because I need you to know that God saw every single moment. He witnessed every fake smile you forced when your heart was breaking. He observed every time you encouraged someone else while your own spirit was crushed. He documented every prayer you prayed through tears, every worship song you sang with a wounded heart, every act of service you performed while feeling completely depleted. The world called it weakness. Heaven called it worship. They saw defeat. God saw determination. They witnessed failure. The Almighty witnessed faithfulness. Look at David. While his brothers went to war and gained recognition, he was stuck in the fields watching sheep, forgotten by his own father when the prophet came to anoint the next king. So overlooked that Jesse didn't even bother to call him in from the pasture when Samuel arrived. But every lion he killed in secret prepared him for Goliath in public. Every quiet moment with God in the wilderness equipped him for the throne in Jerusalem. Every psalm he wrote in solitude became the prayer manual for generations. God was not absent. He was taking notes in silence. He saw it all. Your midnight prayers when sleep wouldn't come because the burden was too heavy. Your early morning worship when you dragged yourself out of bed despite feeling spiritually empty. Your faithful giving when you barely had enough for yourself. Your continued service when nobody even said thank you. Every single moment was seen. Every single sacrifice was recorded. Every single tear was treasured. The enemy wants you to believe those years were wasted. He wants you to think you missed your window. He wants you to feel like everyone else got their miracle while you got left behind. But that's a lie straight from the pit of hell. You weren't left behind. You were being positioned. You weren't forgotten. You were being formed. You weren't overlooked. You were being overqualified for what's coming next. See, anyone can handle instant success. Anyone can manage overnight breakthrough. Anyone can steward sudden favor. But it takes someone special, someone tested, someone proven to handle the kind of overwhelming blessing that's about to crash into your life like a spiritual tsunami. God needed to know He could trust you with glory. He needed to see if you'd stay faithful when nobody was watching. He needed to witness your worship when the worship leader was you and the congregation was empty chairs and silent walls. And you passed every test. You didn't quit when quitting made sense. You didn't give up when giving up seemed logical. You didn't walk away when walking away would have been easier. You stayed. You remained. You endured. And now, chosen one, now comes the reward. But before we talk about what's coming, I need you to understand why the wait was necessary. Because what God is about to do in your life is so massive, so public, so absolutely overwhelming that it requires someone who knows how to handle pressure, someone who understands the weight of blessing, someone who won't crack under the intensity of sudden favor. Those silent years weren't punishment, they were preparation. Those hidden seasons weren't abandonment, they were appointment for this exact moment. Those painful periods weren't evidence of God's absence. They were proof of His presence, shaping you, molding you, preparing you for a blessing so loud that everyone who counted you out will have to count you in. The question isn't whether God saw your faithfulness. The question is, are you ready for Him to show the world what He was building in the secret place? Why does God allow His chosen ones to walk through valleys so deep that even their own family questions their faith? Why would a loving Father permit His children to endure seasons where every door slams shut, every opportunity vanishes, and every prayer seems to echo back empty? Why does the Almighty orchestrate circumstances that look like complete and utter failure when He could have given you victory from day one? Here's what nobody tells you about the wilderness seasons, chosen one. What looks like God abandoning you is actually God positioning you. Every closed door wasn't rejection, it was redirection. Every setback wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Every moment you felt forgotten was actually the moment God was setting up your comeback. You thought you were stuck, but you were being stationed. Let me paint you a picture that will shatter everything you thought you knew about your pain. Picture a massive theater on Broadway. The audience can't see what's happening backstage. They don't see the crew moving props, adjusting lights, testing sound systems. All they see is a dark, empty stage. But behind that curtain, behind that darkness, the most spectacular production of their lives is being prepared. Your life has been that dark stage, hasn't it? While everyone else seemed to be enjoying their spotlight moments, you've been sitting in darkness, wondering if God forgot your name. But chosen one, the stage was being built in the dark. Every tear was a spotlight being positioned. Every heartbreak was a costume being tailored. Every disappointment was a prop being perfected. You thought you were stuck, but you were being stationed. Look at Joseph, 17 years old, favored by his father, wrapped in that coat of many colors. Then boom, betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, thrown into a dungeon and forgotten. For 13 years, Joseph's stage was being built in the dark. 13 years of humiliation, 13 years of being overlooked, 13 years of wondering if his dreams were just teenage fantasies. But here's what Joseph couldn't see from his prison cell. God was building an empire-sized stage. Pharaoh's palace wasn't just a promotion, it was a platform. That dungeon wasn't just punishment, it was preparation. Every insult, every injustice, every sleepless night was God arranging the lighting for the greatest comeback in biblical history. When Pharaoh's dream needed interpretation, when the famine threatened to destroy nations, when the royal court needed someone with unshakable character, who did God call? The man who had been seasoned in the silence, the one who had learned to worship in the wilderness, the chosen one who had been stationed, not stuck. You thought you were stuck, but you were being stationed. Consider Mephibosheth, crippled at age 5 when his nurse dropped him while fleeing from battle, grandson of King Saul, but living like a beggar in Lodebar, a place whose name literally means no pasture. For years, this prince lived in poverty, convinced he was cursed, forgotten, worthless. But David never forgot. One day, King David asked, "Is there anyone left from Saul's family to whom I can show kindness?" Mephibosheth was summoned to the palace, crawling before the king, expecting execution. Instead, David restored all of Saul's land to him and gave him a permanent seat at the royal table. The crippled man who thought he was forgotten became a permanent dinner guest of the king. His limp didn't disqualify him, it distinguished him. His brokenness became his badge of honor. That failure season, that disability you've been ashamed of, that limitation you've been hiding, God's about to turn it into your platform. You thought you were stuck, but you were being stationed. Think about Hannah. Year after year, she begged God for a child while Peninnah mocked her barrenness. Every family gathering became a reminder of her emptiness. Every baby dedication at the temple was a knife twisting in her heart. Hannah's pain was so public, so persistent, so humiliating that even the priest thought she was drunk when she prayed. But Hannah's closed womb was actually God's setup for the greatest prophetic birth in Israel's history. Her son Samuel would become the kingmaker, the one who anointed David, the man after God's own heart. Hannah's humiliation became her qualification. Her tears became her testimony. Her private pain became public praise. The very thing that embarrassed you for years is about to become the very thing that elevates you for eternity. Now let me bring this home to your living room, to your kitchen table, to your sleepless nights. I know there's a widow watching this right now. You buried your husband 3 years ago, and your own children whisper behind your back that you're too old to start over, too set in your ways to change, too dependent on faith and not enough on reality. They've written you off as the sweet old lady who prays too much and expects too little. But what they don't see is that God has been building your stage in the dark. Every night you've cried yourself to sleep, He was installing new lighting. Every morning you forced yourself out of bed, He was adjusting the sound system. Every act of faith they called foolish was actually God positioning you for the most spectacular second act of your life. You thought you were stuck, but you were being stationed. There's a man listening whose company laid him off after 32 years of faithful service. 32 years. You gave them your prime, your energy, your loyalty. They thanked you with a pink slip and a pension that barely covers your mortgage. Your former colleagues avoid eye contact at the grocery store. Your neighbors whisper about foreclosure. Your own family suggests you lower your expectations and accept reality. But here's what nobody sees. God has been preparing you to own the very building they fired you from. The skills they said were outdated, they're about to become cutting edge. The experience they called irrelevant, it's about to become invaluable. The faith they mocked as naive, it's about to move mountains. The same doors that shut you out are about to swing wide open with you as the owner, not the employee. You thought you were stuck, but you were being stationed. This is the mystery of divine setup, chosen one. What looks like God's absence is actually God's presence working overtime. What feels like punishment is actually preparation. What appears to be delay is actually divine timing, getting every detail perfect. The pain you've endured wasn't random, it was strategic. The isolation you've experienced wasn't abandonment, it was appointment. The humiliation you've suffered wasn't punishment, it was positioning. Every closed door was God saying, "Not yet, I'm building something bigger." Every delayed answer was God saying, "Wait, I'm arranging something better." Every public embarrassment was God saying, "Trust me, I'm orchestrating something greater." Your wilderness season had an expiration date, and chosen one, that date is approaching fast. The stage that's been built in the dark is almost ready for the spotlight. The preparation that looked like punishment is about to be revealed as the most brilliant setup in your life story. But here's what you need to understand as we move forward. The same God who stationed you in the dark is about to spotlight you in the light. And when he does, the embarrassment won't be yours, it'll be theirs. The question is, are you ready for the curtain to rise on the greatest comeback of your life? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. There comes a moment in every believer's journey when God gets tired of blessing you in the shadows. There comes a time when he decides your breakthrough needs an audience, your miracle needs witnesses, your victory needs spectators. God is about to make you a spectacle, not the kind of spectacle that brings shame, the kind that brings glory so blinding, so undeniable, that even your enemies will have to shield their eyes from the radiance of his favor on your life. You see, for years you've been faithful in the dark. You've been praying behind closed doors. You've been sowing seeds in secret. You've been worshiping in whispers. But God doesn't just reward private devotion with private blessings. He rewards hidden faithfulness with public vindication. Think about this. When God promoted Daniel, he didn't just give him a quiet promotion. He made Nebuchadnezzar write a decree that went out to every nation, tribe, and language on earth, declaring the greatness of Daniel's God. When God elevated Esther, he didn't just save her people in secret. He made Haman build his own gallows and hang on the very tree he prepared for Mordecai. God loves a public comeback. You've been asking God to bless you, but what if I told you he's been preparing to embarrass you with blessing? What if your breakthrough isn't just going to change your bank account, but silence every critic who said you'd never make it? Right now, there are people who have written you off. They've counted you out. They've measured your potential by your past mistakes. They've judged your future by your present struggles. They look at your age and think your best days are behind you. They see your circumstances and whisper, "They'll never recover from this." But what they don't know is that God specializes in impossible comebacks. He majors in supernatural reversals. He holds a PhD in divine vindication. The same mouths that cursed you will have to say, "This is the Lord's doing. Let me paint you a picture of what's coming." You know that person who said you'd never amount to anything? They're going to see your name in lights. That family member who called you a failure? They're going to watch you succeed beyond their wildest imagination. That former boss who said you were too old, too slow, too outdated. They're going to see you owning the company they're still trying to get hired at. God is about to make you a walking altar call. When people look at your life, they won't be able to explain it with natural reasoning. They won't be able to credit it to luck, connections, or timing. Your blessing will be so supernatural, so overwhelming, so clearly divine, that people will point to you and say, if God can do that for them, maybe He can do something for me too. You're not just getting blessed. You're becoming a billboard for God's faithfulness. But let me tell you something that might shock you. The reason God is about to embarrass you with favor isn't just because you've been faithful. It's because He needs to prove a point to a watching world. He needs to show this generation that He still moves. He still heals. He still promotes. He still vindicates. He still does the impossible. Your breakthrough is His proof. In 1 Kings 18, when Elijah called down fire from heaven, he didn't do it just to win a contest. He did it so that all Israel would know that the Lord, He is God. When God parts the Red Sea in your life, when He makes your enemies your footstool, when He turns your mourning into dancing, it's not just for you. It's for everyone watching who needs to know that God is still in the miracle business. Comment, no more hiding, if you're ready for public glory. You've been hiding long enough. You've been playing small long enough. You've been whispering when God created you to roar. You've been tiptoeing when He designed you to march. You've been apologizing for your gifts when He intended them to be displayed. No more hiding. God is about to put you on display like a trophy in His trophy case, not to make you proud, but to make Him famous, not to inflate your ego, but to increase His glory. When people see what He's done in your life, they won't praise you, they'll praise Him. And here's the most beautiful part. The same people who used to mock you will become your greatest testimonies. The ones who laughed at your dreams will fund your vision. The ones who said you'd never make it will make room for you at their table. But this kind of public vindication doesn't come cheap. This level of divine embarrassment requires preparation. God doesn't just throw you into the spotlight unprepared. He doesn't make you a spectacle without first making you ready for the stage. Think about David. Before he could wear the crown, he had to tend sheep. Before he could kill Goliath, he had to kill the lion and the bear. Before he could rule a kingdom, he had to survive Saul's spear. God was preparing him in private for public glory. The same thing has been happening to you. Every rejection has been building your resilience. Every setback has been strengthening your comeback. Every no has been preparing you for the yes that will change everything. You thought you were being overlooked, but you were being prepared. You thought you were being forgotten, but you were being positioned. You thought God had abandoned you, but He was actually preparing the stage for your greatest performance. Your season of obscurity is over. Your time of invisibility is done. Your days of being overlooked, undervalued, and underestimated are coming to an end. God is about to embarrass you with so much favor that you won't be able to hide it. Your blessing will be so loud that silence won't be an option. Your breakthrough will be so public that privacy won't be possible. When Lazarus came out of that tomb, everyone saw it. When the blind man received his sight, the whole neighborhood witnessed it. When the lame man walked, the entire temple was watching. God doesn't do secret miracles when He wants to make a statement. And chosen one, God wants to make a statement through your life. He wants to show this broken world that He's still a God of restoration. He wants to prove to this hopeless generation that He's still a God of resurrection. He wants to demonstrate to this faithless culture that He's still a God of the impossible. Your life is about to become His sermon. Your story is about to become His statement. Your breakthrough is about to become His billboard. Are you ready for that kind of responsibility? Are you prepared for that level of visibility? Are you willing to let God use your life as evidence of His goodness? Because once God embarrasses you with this level of favor, there's no going back to anonymity. Once He makes you His spectacle, you can't retreat to the shadows. Once He puts you on display, you become His permanent testimony. But before the glory comes, God had to purify the ground beneath your feet. You know what nobody talks about? The years that felt like death. The decades when you kept showing up, kept believing, kept trusting God while everything around you crumbled. While your friends got promoted, you got passed over. While others found love, you found loneliness. While they built empires, you barely held on to hope. Dear chosen one, I need you to hear something that's going to cut deep before it heals. Those weren't wasted years. Those were warrior years. Every single moment of abandonment, every season of silence, every night you cried yourself to sleep, wondering if God had forgotten your address. It was all preparation for this moment. But let's be brutally honest about what that preparation cost you. You gave your 20s to a dream that seemed to die. You poured your 30s into relationships that betrayed you. You invested your 40s in ministries that used you up and spit you out. And now, looking in the mirror, you see silver hair where promises used to live. You see wrinkles where miracles should have been. The enemy whispers, "You're too old now. Your time has passed. Look at you, grey, tired, forgotten. If God was going to move, He would have done it when you were young and strong." Stop, right there. That lie ends today. God put you in the oven, not the trash. The heat was never meant to kill you. It was to refine the oil. And chosen one, the oil that comes from pressure, from time, from years of hidden faithfulness, that oil burns brighter and lasts longer than anything squeezed out quickly. You think David wrote his most powerful psalms in the palace? Number. He wrote them in the cave of Adullam, surrounded by broken men, hiding from a king who wanted him dead. The psalms that still comfort millions today were birthed in his darkest, loneliest hours. You think Moses received his burning bush at 20? Try 80. 80 years old, tending sheep in the wilderness, probably wondering if he'd blown his purpose when he killed that Egyptian in his youth. But God wasn't late. God was right on time. Here's what's happening to you right now. You're sitting in your own cave of Adullam. You're in your own wilderness of Midian. And you think it's punishment, but it's actually preparation. You think it's abandonment, but it's actually appointment. The shame you feel about aging without seeing the promise fulfilled, I know it burns. You look at younger people stepping into their callings and you wonder, God, did you forget about me? Was I not faithful enough? Did I miss my season? But what if I told you that your season isn't behind you? It's in front of you. What if the very thing that makes you feel disqualified, your age, your scars, your long journey, is exactly what qualifies you for what's coming? Sarah didn't get pregnant at 25. She got pregnant at 90. Anna didn't see the Messiah in her youth. She saw him in the temple at 84, after decades of widowhood and waiting. Caleb didn't inherit his mountain at 30. He took it at 85, saying, "Give me this mountain," with the faith of a warrior half his age. You gave your best years, and it looked like nothing came back. You sowed in tears. You planted in darkness. You watered with your own blood, sweat, and heartbreak. And the devil convinced you that because you couldn't see the harvest, there wasn't going to be one. But God is a God of open reward. He doesn't just bless you. He embarrasses your enemies with how good He is to you. He doesn't just promote you. He does it so loudly that people who wrote you off have to eat their words. Every year you spent in obscurity was God adding compound interest to your blessing. Every decade of faithfulness was Him building pressure in the oil well of your destiny. And now, right now, you're about to experience what happens when 60, 70, 80 years of faithful sowing explodes into supernatural reaping. You weren't overlooked. You were over-prepared. Think about this. When God promotes someone young, people say, they got lucky, right place, right time. But when God promotes someone who's been through hell and back, who's got grey hair and scars and stories that would break weaker souls, people can't deny it. They have to say, that's the hand of God. Your wrinkles are your credentials. Your scars are your qualifications. Your age is your advantage. Because anybody can have faith for 20 years. But it takes a chosen one to have faith for 50 years, 60 years, 70 years when nothing visible has changed. The oil that's about to flow from your life has been aging in the hidden place. It's rich, it's powerful, it's concentrated with decades of devotion. When it starts flowing, it won't be a trickle, it'll be a flood. It won't be quiet, it'll be thunderous. It won't be private, it'll be public. Undeniable, overwhelming. God has been preparing you for an assignment that requires everything you've been through. The loneliness taught you to depend on Him alone. The losses taught you that He's all you need. The abandonment taught you that His presence is more valuable than human approval. The delays taught you that His timing is perfect, even when it doesn't make sense. You think you're starting late? You're starting at exactly the right time. You think you're too old? You're the perfect age for what God has planned. You think you've missed your moment? Your moment has been building for decades, and it's about to break over your life like a tsunami of supernatural favor. Every day you chose faith over fear, added power to your testimony. Every time you worshipped through the pain, added weight to your glory. Every moment you refused to quit in the quiet seasons, added magnitude to your public vindication. The hidden place wasn't your punishment, it was your preparation chamber. And what's about to emerge from that chamber isn't just blessed, it's anointed. It's not just favored, it's powerful. It's not just promoted, it's prophetic. But here's what I need you to understand as we move forward. This public embarrassment of favor that's coming, it's not just for you to enjoy, it's for you to steward. God isn't just about to bless you. He's about to make you a blessing that the world can't ignore, can't explain away, and can't deny came from heaven itself. Listen to me, chosen one. We've talked about the hidden years, the preparation, the silence, but now we're stepping into something that will make your neighbors do double takes. We're entering the realm where God's favor becomes so obvious, so undeniable, so absolutely overwhelming that you can't hide it, even if you tried. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? That moment when the blessing is so loud that it speaks for itself. When your life becomes a walking testimony and you don't have to say a single word. Remember when Jesus said in Matthew 6:6, "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you openly." Openly, beloved, not quietly, not privately, openly. God is preparing to reward you so publicly that people will stare, they'll whisper, they'll wonder, and some of them will weep because they'll finally understand that the God of miracles is still alive. You've been praying behind closed doors for decades. You've been faithful in the dark corners of your life where nobody was watching. You've been consistent when it didn't make sense, generous when you had nothing left to give, faithful when faith felt foolish. And God saw every single moment of it. But here's what's about to happen that will shock you to your core. God is about to make your blessing so obvious that you'll be embarrassed by how good He is to you. People will see it on your face before you even speak. There's a glow that comes with divine favor that no makeup can replicate, no surgery can create, no acting can fake. It's the radiance of someone who has been touched by the hand of the Almighty. Your countenance will change. Your posture will shift. The way you carry yourself will declare that something supernatural has happened. Even strangers will sense it. They'll look at you and think, something's different about that person. And when they ask you how it happened, when they demand to know your secret, when they beg you to explain the sudden turn in your life, you won't be able to take credit. You won't be able to say, "I worked harder." You won't be able to claim, "I had the right connections." You won't even be able to say, "I finally figured it out." The only words that will come out of your mouth will be, "God did this." This is what Psalm 126 was talking about when it said, "When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dreamed. Our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with songs of joy." Then it was said among the nations, "The Lord has done great things for them." The nations will notice, beloved. Your transformation will be so dramatic that people who don't even know God will have to acknowledge that something divine has taken place in your life. But let me tell you something that might make you uncomfortable. You're going to have to get used to being stared at. You're going to have to adjust to being the topic of conversation. Because when God decides to bless you openly, He doesn't whisper it. He announces it. Think about this for a moment. How many years have you lived under the radar? How many decades have you blended into the background, hoping not to draw attention to yourself? How long have you been comfortable being invisible, overlooked, forgotten. That season is over. God is about to put you on display, not to shame you, but to showcase His faithfulness, not to embarrass you with your past, but to exalt you in your present. You're about to become living proof that God still moves mountains for His people. And here's the part that will blow your mind. You won't be able to downplay it, you won't be able to minimize it, you won't be able to brush it off or act like it's no big deal. Because the blessing will be so massive, so undeniable, so absolutely impossible to explain away that humility will require you to give God all the glory. This is divine embarrassment at its finest. God embarrassing you with goodness so overwhelming that you can't help but point people to Him. Remember Malachi 3:3. He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. He will purify the Levites and refine them like gold and silver. The refining process was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to make you shine so brightly that when the light hits you, people are blinded by the reflection of God's glory in your life. You've been in the furnace, haven't you? You've felt the heat of trials, the pressure of adversity, the intensity of seasons that seem to go on forever. But God wasn't trying to break you down. He was burning away everything that wasn't authentic, everything that wasn't eternal, everything that couldn't survive the weight of the blessing He was preparing to pour out on your life. And now, chosen one, you're about to find out why the refining was necessary, because what's coming is so powerful, so abundant, so absolutely overwhelming that you needed to be purified to carry it. This blessing will be loud. Your life will speak without your mouth moving. Your very presence will preach sermons. Your smile will evangelize. Your peace will prophesy. Your joy will be a testimony that God is still in the business of making all things beautiful in His time. People will drive by your house and feel the presence of God. They'll sit next to you in restaurants and sense the peace that passes understanding. They'll work alongside you and wonder why everything seems to go right when you're around. This isn't pride talking. This is prophecy. This is what happens when God decides to use your life as a billboard of His faithfulness. When He decides to make you a walking advertisement for His goodness. When He chooses to transform your story into His glory. But I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Are you ready for this level of favor? Are you prepared for blessings that don't make sense? Can you handle promotion that you didn't earn, provision that you didn't work for, and favor that you can't explain? Because once God starts moving in your life this way, there's no going back to normal. There's no returning to mediocrity. There's no hiding behind "I'm just ordinary." You'll be marked by the miraculous, and everyone will see it. Your bank account will testify. Your health will declare. Your relationships will proclaim. Your opportunities will announce. Everything in your life will scream that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is still performing wonders for His people. And the most beautiful part? You won't have to convince anyone. You won't have to argue your case. You won't have to defend your blessing or justify your favor. The evidence will be so overwhelming that even your enemies will have to admit that the hand of the Lord is upon your life. This is the divine embarrassment you can't hide. This is the blessing that speaks for itself. This is the favor that turns your life into a 24/7 testimony of God's goodness. If you're ready for favor that doesn't make sense, if you're prepared for blessings that will embarrass you with their magnitude, if you're willing to become God's walking advertisement of His faithfulness, then type overflow in the comments right now. Because, beloved, your season of secret faithfulness is about to become your season of spectacular favor. And the whole world is about to see what happens when God decides to publicly embarrass His children with overwhelming goodness. But the question that will determine everything about your next season is this. When the blessing comes so loud that it drowns out every voice of doubt, every whisper of unworthiness, every echo of your past failures, will you have the courage to receive it without apology? Remember that verse in Psalm 118-22. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. That stone didn't change. The builder's eyes did. And chosen one, your moment of vindication is about to shatter every assumption they made about your life. They mocked you when you kept believing after the diagnosis. They mocked you when you stayed faithful after the betrayal. They mocked you when you kept tithing even when the bills piled up higher than your hope. They called you naive. They called you foolish. They called you finished. But here's what they didn't understand. Every insult was actually building your platform. Every rejection was actually positioning your promotion. Every time they counted you out, God was counting you worthy. They misunderstood you completely. When you spent Saturday nights in prayer instead of parties, they thought you were missing out. When you chose character over convenience, they thought you were weak. When you walked away from toxic relationships, they thought you'd end up alone. When you refused to compromise your values for a paycheck, they thought you'd end up broke. But you weren't missing out. You were being set apart. You weren't weak. You were being strengthened in the secret place. You weren't going to end up alone. You were being prepared for divine connections. You weren't going to end up broke. You were being positioned for supernatural breakthrough. They misunderstood your tears as defeat. God saw them as seeds. They misunderstood your silence as surrender. God knew it was strategy. They misunderstood your setbacks as disqualification. God designed them as preparation. Listen to me carefully. Every person who underestimated you made the same fatal mistake. They measured your potential by your circumstances instead of your Creator. They looked at where you came from instead of where you were going. They judged your future by your past instead of your faith. But most critically, they miscalculated your God. They forgot that the same God who promoted a shepherd boy to king is still on the throne. They forgot that the same God who took Esther from orphan to queen is still moving. They forgot that the same God who lifted Joseph from prison to palace is still working miracles. Your God doesn't need their permission to bless you. He doesn't need their approval to promote you. He doesn't need their understanding to elevate you. When God decides to move, human opinions become irrelevant. Think about this. Right now, as I'm speaking these words, there are people from your past who haven't thought about you in years. But something is stirring in the spiritual realm that's about to bring your name back to their minds. Not because you called them, not because you reached out, but because your blessing is about to be so loud, so public, so undeniable that even your enemies will have to acknowledge it. Now they have to watch you rise. And oh, how the tables are turning. The same people who wouldn't return your calls are about to see your face on their screens. The same people who excluded you from their circles are about to witness your influence expand beyond their reach. The same people who said you'd never amount to anything are about to watch you impact thousands. You were the rejected stone, cast aside, deemed worthless, thrown into the pile of broken dreams. But cornerstone stones aren't chosen for their beauty, they're chosen for their strength. They're not selected for their popularity, they're selected for their ability to hold everything together. And that's exactly what God has been doing in your life. Every rejection strengthened your foundation. Every disappointment deepened your dependence on Him. Every closed door taught you to trust His timing. You weren't being discarded. You were being prepared to carry weight that would crush ordinary people. The cornerstone doesn't seek attention, but everything depends on it. The cornerstone doesn't demand recognition, but nothing stands without it. And chosen one, you're about to discover that everything God allowed you to endure was building you into something unshakable. Here's what's about to happen. People who walked out of your life when things got difficult are going to start hearing stories about your breakthrough. They're going to see photos of your restoration. They're going to witness testimonies of your triumph. And they're going to feel something they weren't expecting. Regret. Not regret that you succeeded. Regret that they weren't there to witness the process. Regret that they gave up on you too soon. Regret that they let their doubt override their loyalty. They'll whisper to each other, "I don't know how, but they made it." They'll say it with confusion in their voices because they can't trace your blessing to any human effort. They'll say it with wonder because they witnessed your darkest hour, but now they're seeing your brightest season. Some will try to reconnect, suddenly remembering how close you used to be. Some will claim they always believed in you, conveniently forgetting their absence during your struggle. Some will ask for advice, the same people who once offered criticism. But here's what I need you to understand. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about proving them wrong. This is about proving God right. every prophecy spoken over your life, every promise whispered in your prayers, every confirmation you received when nobody else was watching. Your elevation isn't designed to make them feel small. It's designed to make God look big. Your breakthrough isn't about settling scores. It's about demonstrating that He keeps His word. Your vindication isn't for your ego. It's for His glory. But let me tell you what this shift really means. It means every tear you cried in secret is about to become a testimony in public. Every prayer you whispered in desperation is about to be answered with demonstration. Every time you stood alone in faith is about to be rewarded with favor that can't be explained. The magnitude of what's coming isn't just about blessing you, it's about blessing others through you. You're not just going from the bottom to the top. You're going from rejection to becoming a reflection of God's faithfulness. From being overlooked to becoming an overcomer that others can look to for hope. Your story is about to become evidence that God still moves. Your life is about to become proof that He still promotes. Your testimony is about to become a trumpet that declares His power to a generation that's forgotten what real miracles look like. Share this message if you've ever been the underdog. Share it if you've ever been counted out. Share it if you know what it feels like to be underestimated, overlooked, or written off. Because your sharing isn't just spreading a message. It's spreading hope to someone else who's still in their dungeon season, still believing for their palace moment. And as we move forward, I want you to prepare your heart for what we're about to discuss next. Because if you think the shift from mockery to magnitude is overwhelming, wait until you understand the weight of glory that's about to rest on your life. What happens when God doesn't just restore what you lost, but gives you influence you never imagined? What happens when your blessing becomes so evident that people start seeking you out, not for what you can do for them, but for the God they see working through you? Listen to me, chosen one. What's coming for you isn't just a blessing. It's a prophetic announcement that will echo through generations. God is about to turn your life into a billboard of His faithfulness so massive, so undeniable, that strangers will stop and stare. You've been walking through seasons where nothing made sense, where good people suffered and evil seemed to prosper, where your faithfulness felt foolish and your prayers felt like they bounced off the ceiling. But I need you to understand something that will shake you to your core. God has been writing a story with your pain, and the final chapter is about to be published in public. This isn't the kind of favor that people can explain away with hard work or good connections. This is supernatural, inexplicable, uncontainable glory that defies every natural law. When Lazarus walked out of that tomb after 4 days, nobody could rationalize it. When the Red Sea split for Moses, Pharaoh's magicians went silent. When Hannah finally held Samuel in her arms, her enemies couldn't speak. That's the kind of favor heading straight toward you. You know what terrifies the enemy more than your prayers? Your promotion. Because when God lifts you up, He's not just blessing you, He's making a statement to every principality and power that said you wouldn't make it. Your elevation becomes their education. Your breakthrough becomes their breakdown. Think about Daniel, thrown into a lion's den for praying. But when morning came and he walked out without a scratch, King Darius didn't just release him. He wrote a decree that everyone in the kingdom had to honor Daniel's God. One night of inexplicable protection became a national revival. Your enemies are about to become your evangelists. But here's what's going to shock you. You're not being elevated for ego, you're being lifted for impact. God isn't making you successful to stroke your pride. He's positioning you to be a weapon of encouragement in a broken world. Every person who sees your impossible turnaround will have to ask themselves, if God did it for them, could He do it for me? This is not just for you, it's through you. The favor that's coming is so overwhelming, you're going to feel guilty at first. You'll look around and wonder why you deserve this when others are still struggling. But that guilt is a lie from the pit of hell. You didn't earn this, you endured for it. You didn't work for this, you worshipped through it. You didn't scheme for this, you simply stayed faithful when faith felt impossible. Isaiah 61:7 says, "Instead of your shame you will receive a double portion, and instead of disgrace you will rejoice in your inheritance." Not just restoration, double portion. Not just recovery, inheritance. God doesn't just give back what the enemy stole. He gives back with interest that would make Wall Street weep. But let me tell you something that's going to disturb your comfort zone. This glory is going to be uncomfortable at first. You've been conditioned to hide, to minimize yourself, to apologize for taking up space. But God is about to thrust you into visibility that you can't control or contain. Remember when Moses came down from Mount Sinai and his face was so radiant that the Israelites couldn't look at him? He didn't do anything to make himself glow. He just spent time in God's presence. That's what's happening to you right now. You've been in the secret place so long that when you emerge, people won't be able to deny that you've been with God. The glow is coming whether you're ready or not. You'll walk into rooms and change the atmosphere without saying a word. You'll speak and people will sense authority they can't explain. You'll make decisions and doors will open that you never even knocked on. This isn't arrogance. This is anointing. This isn't pride. This is promotion from the throne room of heaven. But here's what Satan doesn't want you to know. The same people who watched you struggle are going to watch you soar. The co-workers who whispered about your failures will whisper about your favor. The family members who counted you out will have to count you in. The friends who stopped calling will start asking how you did it. And you'll have only one answer. This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Your testimony is about to become their conviction, not because you'll preach at them, but because your life will preach to them. They'll see you at the grocery store and wonder why you look different. They'll watch you handle crisis with peace and question their own anxiety. They'll observe your generosity in the midst of inflation and challenge their own stinginess. You're becoming a walking revival. This favor isn't random, it's strategic. God has been positioning you for this moment for decades. Every closed door trained you to appreciate open ones. Every rejection taught you to value acceptance. Every night you cried alone prepared you to comfort others in their darkest hours. You thought you were just surviving, but you were actually being equipped to serve at levels you never imagined. The favor coming your way will be so loud that your haters will have to acknowledge it. They might not like you, but they won't be able to deny the hand of God on your life. Even Pharaoh had to admit that Joseph carried the Spirit of God. Even Nebuchadnezzar had to confess that Daniel's God was the true God. Your enemies are about to become your witnesses. But I need you to prepare your heart for something that might shock you. The favor will come so fast and so strong that you'll question if you're dreaming. One phone call will change your financial situation. One conversation will shift your entire trajectory. One divine encounter will catapult you into rooms you never imagined entering. And when it happens, don't you dare apologize for it. Don't minimize it. Don't explain it away. Stand tall and declare, this is what happens when you serve a God who delights in embarrassing your enemies with overwhelming favor. Because, chosen one, this isn't just about you getting blessed. This is about the world seeing that God still moves, still heals, still provides, still promotes, still vindicates his faithful servants. Your life is about to become a sermon that preaches louder than any pulpit. Are you prepared to be the evidence that God still shows up and shows out for those who trust him? Listen to me very carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to say will either set you free or make you uncomfortable. And if it makes you uncomfortable, good, because comfort is the enemy of your calling. You've been programmed to apologize for your blessings. You've been conditioned to downplay your victories. You've been trained like a circus animal to make yourself small, so others feel big. But I'm here to tell you something that's going to shatter that programming forever. Don't you dare apologize when the miracle hits. Don't you dare shrink back when God decides to embarrass you with overwhelming favor. Don't you dare whisper, I don't deserve this, when the very God of the universe chooses to showcase his power through your life. You know what your problem is? You've been living like you're still that broken person from 10 years ago. You've been apologizing for space you have every right to occupy. You've been dimming your light because someone told you that shining too bright makes others uncomfortable. But chosen one, let me ask you something that's going to rock your world. When Jesus fed 5,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves, did he apologize for the abundance? When he turned water into wine, the finest wine they'd ever tasted, Did he say, "Sorry, I hope this isn't too much"? Absolutely not. He let the miracle speak for itself. He let the blessing be loud. He let the favor be undeniable. And that's exactly what God is training you to do right now. You were trained to hide. God is training you to shine. You were taught to apologize for taking up space. God is teaching you to fill the room with His glory. Look at Esther. When she stepped into the king's court uninvited, she could have died. But instead of shrinking back, instead of apologizing for her boldness, she walked in wearing her royal robes. She didn't sneak in through the back door. She didn't whisper her request. She stood tall, she spoke with authority, and she saved an entire nation. That's the spirit God is awakening in you right now. You're not being prideful, you're being prophetic. There's a massive difference between arrogance and anointing. Arrogance says, "Look what I did." Anointing says, "Look what God did through me." And chosen one, when God starts moving through your life in ways that defy explanation, you don't get to hide it. You know what happens when you try to shrink back from God's favor? You rob others of seeing His power. You steal their opportunity to believe that if God can do it for you, He can do it for them too. Think about this. Every time you apologize for your blessing, you're essentially telling God His gift wasn't appropriate. Every time you downplay your victory, you're suggesting the Almighty made a mistake in choosing you. But here's what's really happening. The enemy has convinced you that being blessed makes you a target. He's whispered lies that if you shine too bright, people will hate you. If you prosper too much, people will be jealous. If you succeed too loudly, people will tear you down. And you know what? Some of them will. Some people will be uncomfortable with your elevation. Some will question how you got there. Some will even try to diminish what God has done in your life. But chosen one, their discomfort with your blessing is not your responsibility. Their inability to celebrate your victory is not your problem to solve. Jesus said in Matthew 5:14-16, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Did you catch that? Jesus didn't say, "Hide your light so people feel comfortable." He said, "Let it shine so people can see God's glory." You are God's announcement to a world that has forgotten He still moves. You are His billboard of impossible favor. You are His testimony that He hasn't stopped performing miracles. And when you try to hide that, when you apologize for that, when you shrink back from that, you're not being humble, you're being disobedient. Look at David. This teenage shepherd boy didn't apologize when he stepped onto the battlefield to face Goliath. He didn't whisper his challenge. He declared before armies, "This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. This day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel." That wasn't pride talking. That was prophecy. That was a young man who understood he was carrying something bigger than himself. And right now, God is preparing to do something through your life that's bigger than you. Something that will make people stop and stare. Something that will make your enemies have to acknowledge that the hand of the Lord is upon you. But here's the thing. When that favor shows up, when that blessing manifests, when that breakthrough becomes undeniable, you cannot shrink back. You cannot apologize. You cannot make yourself small. You are God's announcement. Walk like it. Talk like it. Carry yourself like someone who represents the King of Kings. When people ask how you got where you are, don't mumble and look at the ground. Look them in the eye and say, "The Lord did this." When they question your qualifications, remind them that God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. This is your moment to break every chain of false humility that has held you back. This is your time to step into the fullness of what God has prepared for you without apology, without explanation, without shrinking back. The favor that's coming your way isn't just for you, it's through you. It's God's way of proving to a generation that He's still the God of the impossible. And when you carry that favor with confidence, when you walk in that blessing without apology, You give others permission to believe for their own miracle. So, chosen one, when that overwhelming favor shows up, and it will, when that supernatural breakthrough manifests, and it must, when God embarrasses you with blessings so loud your enemies have to clap, you better not, you dare shrink back. You are the evidence that God still moves. You are the proof that He still promotes. You are the testimony that He still performs miracles. Drop. No more shrinking in the chat if this word is burning in your spirit right now, because what's coming next will require every ounce of holy boldness you can muster. The overflow is about to overflow, and you need to be ready to receive it with both hands wide open. You know what breaks my heart? There are people sitting in their living rooms right now, wondering if God still performs miracles. They're flipping through channels, scrolling through news feeds filled with darkness, asking themselves, does the Almighty even care anymore? And you know what God's answer is? You. You are His answer. You are His evidence. You are His living, breathing, walking testimony that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob didn't retire when the last apostle died. Your life is a trumpet, chosen one. Every time you walk into a room, heaven announces, watch this. See what I can do with a surrendered heart. Your very presence declares that miracles aren't museum pieces, they're daily bread. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to realize. He's been whispering lies to you for decades. You're too old. You've missed your moment. God's moved on to younger vessels. Lies. Every single word. Listen to me carefully. The Bible says in Isaiah 8:18, "Here am I, and the children the Lord has given me." We are signs and symbols in Israel from the Lord Almighty. You are not an accident walking around this earth. You are a sing. You are a symbol of God's enduring faithfulness. Your gray hair, that's not a liability, that's credibility. Your wrinkled hands, those aren't reminders of age, they're proof of persistence. Every line on your face tells a story of battles fought, storms weathered, and faith that refused to die. Think about this. When people see you thriving at 65, 75, 85 years old, still believing, still trusting, still expecting God to move, what do you think happens in their hearts? Doubt crumbles, cynicism melts, hope resurrects. Your glow is a sermon that no preacher could ever deliver from a pulpit. When your eyes light up talking about God's goodness, when your voice carries peace in the middle of chaos, when your countenance radiates joy despite your circumstances, you're preaching without saying a word. But here's the controversial truth nobody wants to tell you. The church has been hiding its greatest treasures. They've put the seniors in the back, assuming your season of impact is over. But God is about to flip that script so dramatically, it'll shock denominational headquarters from coast to coast. Your favor is a prophecy. Every blessing that lands on your life prophesies to the next generation. If God did it for them, He'll do it for me. Every door He opens for you, opens doors for your children and grandchildren. Every mountain He moves in your life declares to impossibilities everywhere, your time is up. The world is desperate for proof that God hasn't abandoned His people. They're looking for evidence that faith still matters, that prayer still works, that the supernatural still interrupts the natural. And heaven's assignment for you is simple. Be that evidence. When Psalm 118:23 declares, "This is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes," it's not talking about something that happened 3,000 years ago. It's prophesying about what's happening in your life right now. So I need you to stop hiding. Stop apologizing for your age. Stop shrinking back from the spotlight God is preparing for you. The world needs to see that our God didn't retire. They need to witness His power flowing through vessels that the world has written off. You are not too late. You are right on time. You are not too old. You are perfectly aged for this assignment. Now, I want you to say it out loud, wherever you are. Let your voice shake the atmosphere. Declare with the authority of a blood-bought believer, "This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes." But if you think this favor is just for your personal enjoyment, you're about to discover the real reason God embarrasses His chosen ones with overwhelming blessing. My dear chosen ones, as we reach the end of this sacred moment together, I need you to carry 3 truths with you as you step back into your daily life. First, remember this: God's timing has never been about your calendar. It's been about His character. Every delay you've endured, every door that seemed permanently closed, every season where you felt forgotten, none of it was wasted. It was all preparation for the public vindication that's coming. Your embarrassment of overwhelming favor isn't late. It's precisely on schedule. Second, understand that your greatest humiliations have been your greatest qualifications. The very places where life brought you low are the launching pads for your supernatural elevation. Joseph's pit became his preparation for the palace. David's rejection by his own family positioned him for a throne. Your darkest valleys have been God's graduate school, and you're about to receive your diploma in the form of undeniable favor. Third, never forget that this blessing isn't just for you, it's through you. When God embarrasses you with goodness, He's making a statement to every doubter, every mocker, every person who's lost faith in miracles. Your life becomes a billboard declaring that our God still moves, still blesses, still turns mourning into dancing, even for those the world has written off. But here's what I need you to know tonight, and I mean this from the depths of my heart. You are not walking this journey alone, not for one single second. While you've been feeling invisible, God has been orchestrating a symphony of favor around your life. While you've been feeling forgotten, heaven has been taking detailed notes of every tear, every prayer, every moment of faithfulness when no one was watching. So let me ask you this powerful question, and I want you to really sit with it for a moment. What if your greatest embarrassment is only 24 hours away? What if the very thing you've been praying for, crying for, believing for is about to manifest so suddenly, so dramatically, so publicly that you won't have time to prepare your response? Are you ready to handle the shock of answered prayer? Now, before you leave this sacred space we've created together, I want to pray over you. And I don't mean a quick, religious prayer. I mean the kind of prayer that reaches into the throne room of heaven and demands God's attention on your behalf. If you would, just close your eyes wherever you are. Let me put my hand on your shoulder, spiritually speaking, and pray over your life like a spiritual father, like someone who believes in your destiny even when you struggle to believe it yourself. Father God, I come before you tonight carrying the hearts of every person listening to these words. Lord, you see the ones who've been waiting for decades for their breakthrough. You see the ones who've been faithful in the small things, believing for the big things. You see the tears that have been cried in secret, the prayers that have been whispered in desperation, the faith that has been maintained even when the evidence suggested otherwise. God, I'm asking you to embarrass them, not with shame, but with such overwhelming favor that their enemies have to acknowledge your hand upon their lives. Open doors that no man can shut. Provide resources they didn't even know they needed. Heal bodies that doctors have given up on. Restore relationships that seemed beyond repair. Vindicate their faithfulness with public blessing. Lord, for the 70-year-old who thinks their moment has passed, surprise them. For the widow who's been managing alone, surround them with provision. For the grandparent who's been praying for their family's salvation, let them live to see it. For every person who's been faithful in the wilderness, let this be their year of entering the promised land. We thank you in advance for what you're about to do. We thank you for loving us enough to embarrass us with goodness. We receive it now, in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you, and get ready for your divine embarrassment.